guest and speaker, I want briefly to tell you just a little bit about the project. Refugee Tales is a walk in solidarity with refugees, asylum seekers and detainees. We walked for the first time last year. We walked from Dover to Crawley via Canterbury, and every place we stopped, we told a pair of tales. The first was the tale of a person who had sought asylum in the UK and who had been detained, and the second was the tale of somebody who had worked with them. This year we have walked again. We have walked from Canterbury to Faversham, let me get it right, to Gravesend, to Dartford, and we end up in Westminster shortly after we leave you here. So we are right on the last leg of our journey. And again, we have told the tales of people who have sought asylum in the UK and those who have worked with them. We have one specific call in making this walk. The walk makes a specific call. The call is for an end to indefinite immigration detention. The UK is the only country in Europe that indefinitely detains people who have sought asylum. People are arbitrarily detained, they are snatched from their homes or when reporting to the Home Office, and then they are detained, and then they can be held for weeks and months and years in detention. Up to 9 years is the longest that we know of in the detention centres that we have worked in. It is absolutely necessary that indefinite detention is ended now. So we have that specific call, but we also have a general call. Our more general call is that we need in this country, instead of the language of hostility and the environment of hostility with which we confront all of the time, what we need instead is a language of welcome. We need to create a language of welcome in the UK, and so we have set about that through telling these tales with Refugee Tales. Except, of course, that it is the case that there has always been a language of welcome in the UK, and if you look back through our literature, we find welcome being articulated in major writers throughout the centuries. And there's no finer articulation of the need for a language of welcome than in the fragment of a speech, which is Shakespeare's speech given to Thomas More when confronting a group of people who want to get rid of strangers. And it's that speech that we thought it would be wonderful to have read today. This event is part of it. I think it's right at the beginning of the South Banks Festival of Love. And as we were considering who it might be, who we might ask to read this wonderful oration, we could think of nobody better than really one of our very greatest actors, Jeremy Irons. And so Jeremy Irons will now read Shakespeare's speech in the words of Thomas More. Thank you.
Hello, you brilliant walkers. I wish I'd come with you. I didn't know about it in time. But
Next year!
I admire you enormously.
Come next year!
All right. 12 years ago I made a film called Mirad, a Boy from Bosnia, which showed on Channel 2 or Channel 4 or something, about the state of refugeedom. And it taught me that to become a refugee you have to give up your country, you have to give up your friends, you have to give up your home, your things, most of your life, in order to move somewhere else. And when you get to that somewhere else, you discover that you're treated like some sort of vermin. I think it is appalling. And I think it is an attitude which we must try to change. This piece of Shakespearean writing, the original is in, I think, the British Museum, takes place in what was then called St. Martin in the Fields, but is now called Trafalgar Square, where there was a huge protest in Shakespeare's days, a huge protest to get rid of the strangers among us, because they took our women, they took our food, they took our jobs, and we wanted them out. And in the play, Sir Thomas More comes try to quell the riot. And the riot is to have them, the strangers, removed. And More says, grant them removed, and grant that this your noise hath chid down all the majesty of England. Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, their babies at their backs, and their poor luggage, plodding to the ports and coasts for transportation, and that you sit as kings in your desires, authority quite silent by your brawl, and you in ruff of your opinions clothed. What had you got? I'll tell you. You had taught how insolence and strong hand should prevail, how order should be quelled, and by this pattern not one of you should live an aged man, for other ruffians, as their fancies wrought with self-same hand, self-reasons, and self-right, would shark on you, and men like ravenous fishes would feed on one another. What do you to your souls in doing this? Oh, desperate as you are, wash your foul minds and tears, and those same hands that you like rebels lift against the peace, lift up for peace, and your unreverent knees make them your feet to kneel to be forgiven. Say now the king, as he is clement if the offender mourn, should so much come too short of your great trespass as but to banish you. Whither would you go? What country, by the nature of your error, should give you harbour? Go you to France or Flanders, to any German province, Spain or Portugal, nay, anywhere that not adheres to England? Why, you must needs be strangers. Would you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper that breaking out in hideous violence would not afford you an abode on earth? Whet their detested knives against your throats, spurn you like dogs, and like as if that God owed not nor made not you, nor that the claimants were not all appropriate to your comforts, but chartered unto them? What would you think to be thus used? This is the stranger's case, and this your mountainish inhumanity.